Hey, what's going on, sports fans? It's Mo Carter, and it is Nick Kuzma. And right now, it's about midnight following the conclusion of all of the conference championship games in the world of college football. And Nick and I are going to spend a little time chatting it up about what we expect from the college football playoff committee coming up in just a number of hours. First of all, Nick, man, how did you enjoy all the conference championship games?
It's a lot of fun, Mo, and I can tell this is a big deal because you got the college football playoff beanie on right now. So this is
Yes, sir.
this is for real. This matters. Yeah, it was a crazy day. Certainly, I think we should probably start by just rehashing exactly what happened. And I got those written down right here, Mo. So I'll just read them off right now for the people at home. In the SEC, of course, you probably saw Georgia beat Texas 22-19. That game was in overtime. On paper for Alabama, this seems like an awesome scenario, right? Because you want your best win of the year to be against the highest ranked team possible. And now Georgia guarantees themselves a first round bye. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later. I assume that's going to be the number 2 overall seed in the country. In the ACC, though, this is where it totally went off the rails for Alabama. Clemson beats SMU 34-31. SMU looked dead in the water. It looked like it was over, and Alabama fans could maybe root for the opposite scenario. The two things that could happen for them today that would be best case scenario was Clemson losing. Period. SMU winning means they're going to get the ACC bid, and that means that Clemson is out and Alabama, based upon the last CFP rankings, most likely in. The second thing was, okay, what if SMU loses and Clemson wins, but Clemson blows them out and they show that the ponies don't belong? That was best case scenario. In
Right.
reality, what happened though is it looked like SMU was going to get blown out. They come all the way back, tie the game with less than a minute left, and they lose on a 50-plus yard field goal. Absolutely devastating, possibly for the Tide's hopes. 34-31 was the final. Other games, Oregon beats Penn State 45-37 in the Big Ten. Probably the Ducks going to get the number 1 overall seed. Arizona State beats Iowa State. Shout out to our partner Simon Williams. I know he was ecstatic. The Sun Devils going to go to the college football playoff after that victory. And Boise State yesterday beat UNLV 21-7, possibly to lock up a bye for the group of 5, which is something we didn't think was going to happen. We all assumed that the group of 5 was probably going to get that 12th seed. Boise State and their potential Heisman running back, probably not going to win it because of Travis Hunter, but potential Heisman running back will be a finalist. They're going to go all the way to potentially having a bye, Mo. And that is the wrap on the championships today.
Absolutely. A lot of good football that was played from the beginning all the way until the end. And yeah, that SMU versus Clemson game, SMU definitely looked like they were dead in the water. But big shout out to Kevin Jennings for bringing the ponies all the way back to tie that game. And it was just Clemson, Dabo Sweeney and company digging just a tad bit deeper to get a great kickoff return. Great pass to set up a long field goal to go ahead and get a victory. So yeah, as we mentioned, a lot of people, especially here in this state, where Alabama fans were looking at that game very, very closely for two reasons. Because they wanted Clemson to win, and of course, Dabo Swinney is a Alabama grad. There are people still who root for him from time to time here and there, except I guess whenever he's actually playing Alabama, that's a different situation. But yeah, so a wild day on the conference championship front, and now it's the committee who have been sitting together in Grapevine, Texas for literally the last 48 hours just watching nothing but football on their big screen Vizio TVs, and now
They
they
had
have to
like
just
no snacks either, by the way. I don't know if you saw
I
those videos.
noticed
Like
that.
they just had like cups in their hands. Like if I'm on the playoff committee, like I need like the mini meatballs to be coming by. I need some sandwiches. I need some popcorn. Like they need to keep fed to keep the vibes up. And every video that we saw of them, they looked almost bored, which is
They
kind of
were just
unfortunate.
sitting there.
That's a side note. This is a digital exclusive FOX54. We can go off the rails a little bit. But yeah, I was like, what is going on at the committee in Grapevine? Because they don't look like they're having fun, which I know there's a lot of pressure. Partly because of the Alabama SMU question that's coming up. That's a lot of pressure for a lot of people. But no food. Like, I mean, we don't go to an event as media and not expect some food. So,
No,
what's
not at all. My guess is
going on?
this. My guess is that you didn't see the food in the actual videos because whoever the sponsor was for the food has no connection to the actual college football playoff in general
No,
as
that
a
might be
huge
it.
sponsor. So, like let's say Pizza Hut was like, one of the CFP sponsors. You'd have seen Pizza Hut boxes all across the board. You would have seen
True.
wings. You would have seen fries. You would have seen pizza. You would have seen breadsticks.
Well, you're
But
making me hungry, man. I am now hungry. It's been a long day, been at work all day because we were late on Fox 54 because we had some hoops giving action that pushed us all the way back. I haven't eaten in a while, so I'm hungry. So we should probably keep this thing moving. Though that was my one note on the committees, the lack of food, a little troubling. So Mo, I think we should probably talk about the Alabama connection to all this.
Mhm.
We sort of alluded to it. It feels to me like how SMU lost is probably a devastating blow to the college football
Agreed.
playoff hopes. Do you agree? And if so, why?
Absolutely, I agree because for a long time in that game, it didn't look like SMU belonged in a P4 conference. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, Rhett Lashley and company dug deep and, they literally were going toe to toe with Clemson, especially in that fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, they get down to the final minute. They're in Clemson territory. And then Kevin Jennings throws a beautiful touchdown pass with about 20 seconds to go. And you're sitting here like, man, they've got the momentum going into overtime. They look like a true P4 championship contender right then and there. So I think at that point in time, if you're the committee, you're sitting here like, yeah, SMU definitely looks like they belong, especially in their first year as a member of the ACC. So, because of that, all of a sudden, I think the eyeball test truly, truly shows that, all right, because this team is playing and they're playing for a championship all the way down to the wire, that almost becomes bad news for Alabama, who's just sitting there in an idle state. And I know we can go on the strength of schedule and all that, but I think you alluded to it multiple times about this is just one of those years because the SEC technically through the years has been so good or whatever. The things backfire on them with them beating each other up this year, and you don't really have like that true dominant force, like talking about. Sure, Texas, only had one loss and everything this year, but then I saw somewhere they were like, yeah, but Texas didn't play this team, didn't play this team, didn't play this team, didn't play this team, and then when they played Georgia, not once but twice, they come away with a loss. So you think about that, Alabama fans will turn around and be like, well, we beat the SEC champion, which in most cases that would kind of help in most cases or whatever. But this year, the way the committee is kind of presenting a lot of things or whatever, it still just does not feel like it's in the favor of the Alabama Crimson Tide when it comes to those final rankings, which will be released in the later part of Sunday morning.
If you look at Alabama's best, right, it's beating Georgia, um,
Correct.
but it's also almost blowing the game against Georgia. Like they were they
True.
were crushing Georgia going into halftime, and UJ came all the way back. And if it wasn't for a Ryan Williams touchdown at the very end, that game might have gone differently, and Bama might not have that win on their resume. Coming into this weekend, I thought the main focus was going to be Clemson SMU, of course. Some other things did sort of break Alabama's way, though. Like we talked about earlier, I think Georgia winning, if SMU beats Clemson, I think Georgia winning would have been a little extra topping on the cake, the little cherry on top, if you will, because that
Mhm.
means that Alabama has a win against the number 2 team in the country, which is, in the world of resume building, you want your resume to look as good as possible. And if you're looking at the
Correct.
final rankings, clearly, Georgia has potentially awesome has an Alabama, excuse me, has an awesome resume win if they beat since they beat Georgia. The other thing was with Boise State. Like Boise State was kind of a toss up because everyone was thinking if Boise State loses, are they still going to get in? Like because Boise State's only loss up to this point was on the road at number 1 Oregon week 1. So can you really punish Boise State if they lose their conference championship? The whole talk was, can you punish someone for losing a championship? And a lot of people were saying that you absolutely cannot do that. So, but still, the point is, Boise State still won, and Georgia
They
won.
did.
So those things were going Alabama's way. The thing they needed with those cherries on top of the cake was for Clemson to lose. If Clemson loses, they're done.
Correct.
But the bottom line is that didn't happen, and in fact, it happens in like the worst way imaginable. There is no way if the committee was sitting there today and they had the games on and they were thinking, is this an SMU belongs in our top 12 conversation? If they were saying that is one of our criterion for finalizing this top 12, um, there's no question. There's no question that the Mustangs belong after that game. Alabama fans were certainly hoping for it to look the opposite. They were hoping for
Right.
SMU to either win, obviously knock out Clemson, or they were hoping for them to look, get slaughtered. And I really thought it was going to happen for a second there. Like I was watching, and you and I were talking on the phone earlier, and it was like, oh, like this could be a blowout, and it was like, it was sort of trending that way,
It
and
was.
Alabama fans could then have the gripe of, hey, I saw it on Twitter earlier tonight was that's JV out there. You don't put JV in with the varsity in the playoff.
No, you don't. No,
That's a
sir.
varsity team. The Mustangs are a varsity team that came from a competitive league this year. To be honest, just be truthfully honest.
Mhm.
And I think if you do not put SMU in the playoff, there will be such an outcry from fans across college football, and from the Atlantic Coast Conference. And it will start to also question how important conference championship games are. Should people be pulling out of conference championship games because you're really just hurting your resume, when in fact it should only be a resume builder? So I think bottom line is the committee has a decision to make, and we're going to talk about the rankings in just a second. What we think the rankings is going to be, what others are saying the rankings is going to be. But the committee really has one choice, and I there's like no way that they can leave SMU out, in my opinion. I could be wrong,
No.
but it would blow my mind.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I've been watching all these interviews each and every week with what's his name, Ward Manuel, the
Yep.
representative this year for the CFP, and I mean he basically put the criteria out there, and he also cited that they will have their mind focus on the teams playing this weekend before they even start talking about the teams that are not playing, which means Alabama, Miami. You guys are kind of, I hate to say it, an afterthought in their initial rankings or whatever when it comes to everything else. And then you kind of get put back into the mix as, things, kind of roll with it. Now, also, if you're a team like Tennessee, if you're a team like Notre Dame, Indiana, Ohio State, you're kind of already in the mix of what because of where you stand and the way your leagues are. But like I said, when you're like an Alabama or Miami, kind of very, very close to the edge, and if certain scenarios don't go your way, you might be on the outside looking in. I kind of feel like that's the case. And also for everybody watching too, Nick and I also have literally taken a look at various projections or whatever. We're talking about Yahoo Sports, ESPN, Bleacher Report, Fox Sports, NBC Sports. So we've kind of collectively come up with what we're getting ready to present to you guys as far as what we think will be not so much the final rankings. We're going to go with the final seeds. And what I mean by that is what we will get when it comes to whose matchups are going to be whatever and stuff. Because I will admit to you, these first couple of weeks, honestly, when they were trying to break down this and be like, but here's what it means or whatever. So I was getting so confused in most cases, especially when I am putting it together on a graphic to try to explain to you guys or whatever. So I'm gonna just say this: forget the ranking. We're gonna go seeds,
Yeah, I think we
because
go. I think we
that,
go seed. Yeah, and we
yeah,
also gotta. I think we also have to like pick
explain and
12.
break it down.
Like we got
Yep.
to pick 12, and I think because seeding versus ranking get confusing. But if we're talking for an Alabama fan perspective, there can only be 12 that get in. So like, who are the 12 that are gonna break that threshold? And I think Mo, I think we should just sort of take it away
Yeah,
and say what we think.
let's make it happen like this. All right, first and foremost, the top four conference champions, whether it's P4 or a group of five, they will get a first round bye. So what we're looking at right now, we're looking at Oregon as the number one team, as the Big Ten champion, Georgia as the number two seed, as the SEC champion. Then Boise State would be the three seed as the Mountain West champion because they are ranked higher than both the Big 12 champion and the ACC champion. Big 12 champion being Arizona State, and then the ACC champion being Clemson. You know, crazy scenario that we've never ever thought we'd come across or whatever. And now it looks like Arizona State will probably be a 4 seed because they were ranked higher than Clemson coming into Saturday's conference championship game. So we kind of just go by how they present the rules. Arizona State will probably get the 4 seed and get a first round bye. So yeah, shout out to Simon Williams and his alma mater for practically getting a first round bye. A team I think that was picked either second to last or last
Yep.
in the preseason polls for the Big 12
Big
this year.
12. Absolutely. Yeah, never thought Boise State would be in there. I never thought Arizona State was going to be in there. Little funny note: Simon has said previously he thought that he would never ever see Arizona State win basketball or football, anything big. He never thought he'd say a conference championship, a national title.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think Simon's going to start thinking about his team in the Fiesta Bowl at the bye. So yeah, Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, Arizona State. That's our presumed. That's what Mo and I think is be our 1 through 4. Then Mo, let's try and break down 5 through 12, and we can see if we can sneak Alabama in, but I don't think so.
All right. So right now, Nick and I have kind of figured that it'll probably look like this. Texas probably slides down to number 5
Yep.
in the seeding.
Yep.
In the seeding as an at-large team. So they're the first
Yes.
at-large squad. Then after that, we think that Penn State will probably slide down to 6. Reason being,
I think you have to put Penn State at 6.
yeah,
Yep.
reason being both Texas and Penn State played very, very, very good teams in their conference championship games, and they both lost by 1 score.
Yep.
Both lost to 1 score. And I mean, and literally, Texas literally lose to the team that will probably be the 2 seed, and then Penn State loses to the team that is the 1 seed. So, yeah, right then and there it is. That's how you go at large 1, at large 2. Notre Dame, I think, presumably they were usually 6 or whatever. I would have them at 7 just because they were idle this week and because they have no conference or whatever. At 11-1, I think being at number 7 isn't a bad scenario for them. Then after that, I think another idle team this week, Ohio State.
It has to be Ohio
You know,
State. Yeah.
I think they come in at number 8. Then it gets a little tricky. You and I kind of talked about this a little bit here and there or whatever, but I think we kind of decided that we feel that Tennessee should be a 9 seed.
Yeah, I would agree that it's going to be. It should be Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tennessee
Just look at my
should be
paper here. Yep. Just trying to think about it. Yeah. I think
yeah.
Tennessee. Yep.
Tennessee a 9 seed, and then Indiana, the 10 seed. Yes, I know they're 11-1. Their only loss coming to Ohio State. Well, that only loss is to another at-large team. So because of that or whatever, you were also idle this week, and that's why the committee is like, hey, you guys are good enough, but this is about how far we're going to go with it. Now, this is where I think it gets very, very tricky. Once we get to that 11 and 12, let's remember this. Clemson is a P4 champion. So they have an automatic bid. No matter if they were ranked, if they were ranked 18, 19, 20, 21, they will automatically be no worse than 12 because it's 12 teams that certainly do get in. I'm kind of back and forth on this or whatever and stuff. I think Clemson probably gets the 11 seed just because, well, one, they have to get in, but then 2, I think they get the 11 seed because I got SMU as the 12.
Yeah, and that's sort of where we shake out with the 12. It's like SMU could be 11, Clemson 12.
They could be.
They have a better record, but you'd think head to head would matter in this case. Probably putting them, and also recency, probably put them 11 and 12. But SMU it could be the other way. But the bottom line is here, Mo, is we have just about 3-4 minutes left here. There's no way. I don't see a path for Alabama. It would be an absolute shock because I see 12 teams here that are deserving and the CFP has told us are deserving. And they're Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, Arizona State, Texas, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Tennessee, Penn State, Indiana, Clemson, and SMU. I don't see how the Tide can be stuck in here.
No, I don't see it either. I would love to see them in there or whatever, because that means that, our college football postseason coverage will be a little bit more enticing. But honestly, I
Or
just don't really.
I was starting to think about a Friday in South Bend, Mo. That would have been really cool. That would
Yeah,
have been really cool. But
yeah.
I don't see it.
I certainly do not see it now. Let's go back real quick and kind of just go over with this or whatever. We said about the 11 and 12. See, here's the thing. I think Clemson gets the 11 because of the head-to-head, but also the way that the committee has been talking about. They said that the last power whatever champion is going to get in, and they've basically been putting like that team as number 12. That's the only reason why I would see that Clemson would be a number 12, but then they can also have that, well, they just won head to head with SMU, so they deserve to get 11 in that scenario. So I think that's where it's all going to shake out and fold, and I think we're going to get the Ponies and the Tigers, two teams we just saw a few hours ago or whatever, play in as those final two spots, while Alabama and Miami will probably be on the outside looking in right around 13 and 14 seed wise. And if that's the case, Alabama would probably be heading either to the Citrus Bowl or to the Gator Bowl, somewhere nice and sunny for New Year's Day.
It would be nice and sunny. It would still be nice. So with that, if we are right and we go off we're going to put Clemson, are we putting Clemson at 12 or SMU at 12? What's going to be our final say?
I'm gonna put Clemson at 11. So yeah,
Clemson
put
11.
12,
So
put
if that would
SMU
be
at
the
12.
case, SMU would be going to Texas. If we're right, SMU would be going to Texas, and all Texas affair. Clemson would be going to Penn State. Indiana would be going to Notre Dame, an all Indiana affair, and then Tennessee would be going to Ohio State. I mean, that's gonna be great games. And I know Alabama fans would be really upset, but the
Hmm.
bottom line is you can't lose to Vanderbilt and get blown out by a bad Oklahoma team. Period. End of story.
Yeah, that losses to teams with I think both six losses, right?
They
If I'm not
lost. They
mistaken.
lost to Tennessee, yes, who will be in the top 10 most likely on the
Right.
road. Other than that, to 6-6 teams.
Yeah. So I mean, that's where when you really break it down, it's just not favorable for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I would love it for it to be, but that's just not the case. But if we have these matchups like you talk about, I think that SMU versus Texas game be very, very enticing, because I
Oh
mean
man,
that's like old school rivalry right there,
yep.
going back to the old Southwest Conference
The
days.
Southwest Conference days. Yep.
Exactly. So I think that would definitely be something. And then everything else is, pretty enticing. I can't tell you the last time Indiana has played Notre Dame. So I think that would be a really, really good matchup. And you talk
Sure.
about in the state of Indiana. And
Yeah.
then, Clemson, Penn State, two teams that have always been in the mix recently. So I feel like that can definitely be something good. And then, Tennessee and Ohio State, two teams that have kind of been like right
Two
there
two
on
big
the outside.
brands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very big brand. So honestly, I think that's really how it's all going to shake out. That's how Nick really thinks it's going to all shake out. I'm pretty sure Simon Williams will be thinking the same thing or whatever, but we're not going to bother him because he's on a little mini vacay, which is well
Yeah.
deserving for him in that situation. So yeah. So I really, really think all this is going to play out. And I mean, hey, Bama fans, I'm so sorry, but I really just don't think you guys are going to get in the top 12 for seeding. I just do not. No. Now, granted, I'm not paid by the College Football Playoff Committee. I only have this hat from when I covered it a couple of years ago, when Alabama took on Georgia in the city of Indianapolis. So clearly, my word may not be as good as a bond as it would be for some of the other folks on the committee. But lo and behold, we'll find out how it all goes down.